Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our presentation today. We are excited to keep the conversation going around the hot topic of AI. But today, we're going to cut through the hype and focus on what AI can really do for your business and how to get started the smart way. Leading our session today is someone you all know well, our CEO here at CIO Landing, Juan Carlos Bosacoma. He's passionate about helping our clients move their business forward by finding what works, keeping tech simple, and making sure AI becomes a business advantage, not another buzzword or a headache. Take it away, Juan Carlos.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And this morning, I have a pleasure to introduce you to Sagar Pandya, and let's give him a warm welcome. And Sagar is a trailblazer in AI and cybersecurity. Sagar founded Middle Ground Technologies, yes, the one that made waves before being acquired, and now helps organizations master secure, scalable AI transformations. With this insights and charm, you're in for an engaging, eye-opening session. So grab your coffee, your water, settle in, and this is a talk you are not going to want to miss. So with that, what will you learn during this session? One, what AI is really doing in business, top AI risks and how to avoid them. So Sagar is going to really focus on that, and step-by-step AI Playbook, and I think that's going to be a really helpful tool, and a practical AI lens to see where it fits into business. And lastly, leading AI adoption with clarity. And I think that's one of the things that is going to be a great takeaway. So with that, Sagar, take it away.
Thanks, everyone. CIO, Juan, Carlos, Lauren, and all of you. Good morning, good afternoon. We live in a very exciting time right now, and I'm grateful to be able to share this quick session with you this morning. So I've been in the AI space for about 5 years now, and the speed at which it's moving, I would argue it's just sometimes unreachable. And I think it's really important now to take a moment to stop and see where the technology is as of this recording in June of 2025, and then really thinking about the businesses that we're running and the people that are on our teams and how we can become even better versions of ourselves using this transformative technology. So there's a lot of misconceptions that I hear in the business marketplace. I've done dozens of these types of conversations, and everyone seems to think there's just a magic wand where AI is just going to be something where you buy a license and it's magically going to be integrated into your organization. It's going to be plug and play. And that is not necessarily true. There's a lot of security considerations that have to be thought about before you choose an AI tool. There has to be culture improvement in your companies, right? Because your staff are probably unsure or afraid of what AI can do. And then there has to be a conversation around proper usage and making sure that the tools that we're using are purchased in the right manner and deployed with the right security in mind. And that's where companies like CIO Landing are very instrumental, right, in helping drive those types of deployments. There's also this misconception, and I know there's a lot of headlines, Juan Carlos, about AI replacing humans. I know all the CEOs of these large AI companies are always talking about doom and gloom. That's not necessarily true, at least in my opinion. AI still needs a lot of human operators. It still needs human creativity and architecture, and it still needs good thought around how we implement AI into business processes, right? Because AI is not going to know everything about your business. So there's still a need for humans for the foreseeable future. And then lastly, I hear a lot of companies tell us that, oh, we're not Home Depot, we're not Walmart, we're not these large mega corporations. We don't have millions of dollars of budget to start using AI in our organizations. So we're just going to wait until the prices come down, or we're going to wait until we can build up a budget until we can afford AI deployments. That's not true. AI is super accessible for companies of all sizes, and we're going to talk about today how you can achieve that without having to spend millions of dollars from a budgetary standpoint.
Excellent.
So what is AI doing in business today? And I love what we have here at the bottom of the slide. With AI, you start with the problem, then you choose the tool. Most people want to choose the tool first, and then they want to come back to try to solve all of the problems in their businesses. And Juan Carlos, we've talked about this before, but the analogy that I use, very similar to cybersecurity. You wouldn't go to a pharmacy and ask the pharmacist for medication and then take the medication and hope that it solves whatever you think is happening to you, because there's not going to be a good match for that, right? You first want to
Right.
get an assessment. You want to understand where you're at. What are we trying to tackle from a business standpoint? And what are the tools that can solve it for us, right? So I love
So,
that analogy of getting the assessment, and that's what drives the strategy. It's not that we pick a tool and just hope that it's going to solve all of our problems. It's part of the strategy to help improve our businesses for the long run. AI is also a powerful tool that not only helps us communicate and draft emails and summarize our calls, it can also be a brainstorming partner, right? So it can help us think about things that we may not have been thinking about in the first place. It may help us come up with ideas that are completely fresh and new. It helps us achieve more with less resources. And the biggest thing that I am so grateful for in terms of AI right now is the ability for tasks and processes to be automated. So you don't have to have challenging execution. You can have guaranteed execution at scale, and it can really help your team move a lot faster. So you can become even better advocates for your customers, depending on whatever product or service you're selling. And then lastly, I see a lot of value in AI tools from how it's used and how your teams perceive those tools versus the output that the tools generate, right? So if you have a leadership team and they are resistive to any type of disruptive change, that's a much harder conversation. And it doesn't matter what types of AI tools you have, nobody's going to be using them, right? Versus if you have an organization where everybody is aligned, everyone is excited and curious, they want to experiment. That's what drives the adoption of these tools, and that's how businesses are able to succeed. So I'm curious, Juan Carlos, from your perspective, when you think about like AI tool usage, what are some of the things like top of mind that come to you in terms of ways you think it can help customers solve some challenges in their businesses?
well, I do think about what you said earlier about starting the problem with problems. Suppose starting with a tool. Like I've got this screwdriver, right? Uh, this is a good tool, but if I have a problem that is drilling a hole, this is not going to help me.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's the one thing that to me really comes to mind. That is like one place, and I know we use it internally, is when replying to emails. Something just that simple. Uh, I want to craft an email based on a thread of information that came across through different people, and how can it help me summarize quickly, give me a framework, and then that helped me finish up that reply. So something just straightforward, but time saving, and allows me to be more productive.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that I can use AI to write emails, because I can use it to create different tones of responses, right? Depending on who's sending the email. So I'm with you on that. I think the email portion of it is very, very helpful for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. Um,
So let's talk about the business opportunity here. June of 2025, it feels like AI is in every headline, in every news story that we talk about, and we can't seem to get away from it. And I know there's a bunch of folks out there that are telling me like, Sagar, AI is a fad. It's just like the dot-com era. We're just using these tools, and most companies are not going to be around in 6 to 12 months. And while some of that might be true, right? You have some startups that are just trying to build a very small niche, and they're trying to grab as much land share as possible. AI as itself is not just a fad and a technology, but it's a different way of doing business. The businesses of tomorrow, they are going to be built with speed, with agility, with much less resources, with much more scalability, because this type of technology is now starting to get introduced in every organization on the planet. So really the business opportunity comes down to these three things we have listed here. Number one, communication. We know at running our companies and being business leaders and being in the professional world, without communications, there are no customers, there are no staff, there are no vendors, there's no commerce that happens in our companies. And the more that we can become better communicators, whether it's email, like Juan Carlos had mentioned, or it's voice, or it's images, any type of medium that you're using, communication is going to continue to be a strategic multiplier for businesses, and giving AI an opportunity to help us scale it based on how our company already does that process is only going to lead us to better outcomes with our customers, right? So communication is purely number one. Number two, this is a term that so many people continue to talk about: productivity. How can we do more with less? How can we ensure that the teams that we have in our companies have all the resources to support customers by selling more products or services or supporting them from a customer service standpoint and beyond, right? We are inundated with tons of information from multiple systems. How do we make sense of that, and how do we produce faster outcomes so that we can continue to be competitively advantaged in the markets that we compete in? And then lastly, this is my favorite part of this slide, the smarter decision making. How do we elevate our teams, right, to be able to make decisions faster at a higher level, at a much more strategic viewpoint? Because the more we can offset decision making to our teams, the more we give them the ability to take action, the more we give our companies a chance to grow. So, Juan Carlos, the opportunity has never been better. And what I tell people is the AI that you're using today is the dumbest AI that you're going to have access to, because these models and these tools, they are leapfrogging each other and continuing to get better. So starting a business now or wanting to grow a company now is probably the greatest era that we've ever had from a technology standpoint.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, if you're someone that in the past had to go to so many different sources, bring data, aggregate it, get insight, that was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to take some spreadsheets and say, give me a summary of these data points in a way that I can show it visually, and just through the right uh, English language, you can get that done. So, and to your point, people are not going away, and to a large degree, English is the new programming language, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and so, if you're good at expressing yourself in a way that's brief and to the point, you will succeed using the tools.
Absolutely. I compare it to cars, right? Most people expect to be driven or go long distances in a car. You're probably not going to ride a horse anymore, right? To go from your home to the airport with your luggage. That's my prediction. That's what's going to happen in the near future, where if you're doing things without AI, that's like you riding the horse and the people using AI are driving the car. So it's just going to become so normal that doing it any other way is going to be looked at from a different perspective, and it's going to not allow you to compete on the same level.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
But of course, with every amazing technology, there's always two sides of the coin, right? The one side, which we all strive and hope for, is the good side of the tool usage, right? Making sure that we have proper communication and guardrails and policies and alignment so the tools become assets, not liabilities. But with every type of technology, there's the good side and then there's the risky side of the tools. where if it's not monitored, right, or deployed with a strategic partner like CIO, then the use of these tools can cause issues and create liabilities for the companies that use them, right? So first and foremost, my heart lives in the world of cybersecurity. These tools have to be deployed properly, right? And they make it so easy, Juan Carlos. When you go on their website, you can just sign up and put in your email and put in a credit card, ready to go, right? But nobody thinks about, hey, what type of information are our employees sharing into these AI tools? Is it training the models, right? What does training the models mean? It means that these big AI platforms like ChatGPT or Google or Claude, they're using your information to then better their models so that they become smarter and smarter, right? It's just like a child. When they read a book, they learn more about the world. They get smarter as they excel through school. That's AI models. AI models are a learning thing. So the more we input, the more it's going to learn, even if that information is sensitive and shouldn't be out in public, right? So we have to be very mindful of the sensitive data that we're sharing into these tools. We have to be very careful of any type of unauthorized use, especially around tools that integrate into your emails, right? Like Microsoft Copilot or Google Gemini, making sure that we have the right policies and configurations in place so that emails and sensitive data internally, they don't get exposed to these tools accidentally, because once it's out there, you can't learn what the AI model has learned. It's out there forever. The fabricated content risk, that is something that is totally top of mind right now, because there's this concept of deep fakes and content that's created that has no way of being validated on whether it's true or not. And while from a macro point of view, we can probably make decisions to understand whether something is true or not. But Juan Carlos, my question is, if we're using these tools and they hallucinate or make something up, and we use that to present to a client, right? Or we make a financial decision based on false information, right? The consequences of that are large and great, right? And it's really hard to recover from that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole point about AI models hallucinating, it is true, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why you need to have people in the middle, because you need to have sanity checks. And at the end of the day, these tools have been written by people, and we are fragile, and our fragility is embedded on its nature, and so at some point they start fixing themselves, but we cannot be out of the equation. So that's the good news. The
Absolutely.
better news is we got to learn so that tool works for us.
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of human in the loop mentality and the trust but verify, right?
Yeah,
So the AI
absolutely.
tool can be a partner for us, but it should not be the final decision maker. And as long as we follow that, right, the human in the loop and trust but verify, we minimize this fabricated content risk from the organization. And then lastly, not having clear goals. So AI deployment, AI usage inside of organizations should be done with a strategy in mind, right? And that starts with doing AI assessment. That starts with understanding how you're already using AI but may not be aware of it. And then looking to the next 6, 12, 18, 36 months and making a plan, right? Like, here are the folks in the organization that need the access a certain way. Here's a group of folks that can have access with no additional guardrails. And here's the overall strategy in the organization. You need someone that knows how to build those strategies, that has the cybersecurity in mind, and understands, Juan Carlos, my opinion, the IT side of things. Because if you don't understand the IT side of things, you're not going to have the ability to integrate the AI effectively, and it's just going to slow you down as a company.
No, I agree. You need a team in place. It's like just driving a Formula One car. You
Mm-hmm.
can't let the car out there go round and round and round, and then, oh, there it goes, flying off the rails.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now that we've scared everybody, Juan Carlos, we can jump into What does this mean? I know all of you watching now and the ones that will watch the recording in the future, you're probably asking yourselves, we are very excited about AI usage. We've been testing it, or we've had staff that have brought it up to us. We're in this phase of analysis paralysis. What's the first step? What do we do, right? How do we get ready for it? And that's really what this session today is going to help you understand. Like we talked earlier, we don't start with the tool. We start with the problem first, right? So if you think about the organizations that you are in today, that you're leading today, I'm sure every company has thousands of challenges it's trying to solve on a daily basis, right? Some much larger than others. But if we can just have a conversation around what are some of the top 5 challenges or problems that are affecting the team on a regular basis, right? So an example could be, we're spending a lot of time answering customer questions around certain products that we sell from our company. And it's the same 24 questions that keep getting answered, right? And we just always have to spend time answering those. There's a way to solve that with some AI to help you answer those questions at scale, right? You may have a challenge with creating some type of reporting or maybe creating responses to requests that come in. There's ways to solve that, right? So looking at your company to see what are some challenges we face on a daily basis. How many people is it affecting? And what's the severity of that problem? And rank it, right? From highest severity to lower, and then looking through and seeing which ones we want to tackle first. So that's step 1, in my opinion.
Yep.
Step
No,
number 2. Oh, go ahead, Juan Carlos.
no. I said, yeah, absolutely. It's first you got to understand, do you want to join 2 pieces of wood together, or do you want to make a car? What is it? What's the issue at hand? And then the other piece is when you start, don't think about I'm going to build a rocket. I just start with something that's more manageable and you can learn. No, I'm going to build a chair, and I'm going to learn from there.
And I love that you said you don't have to build a rocket because everybody wants to start running and using AI company wide. Everyone gets excited, but we got to get basic principles set up first. So an easy way, just with your team, scheduling some time to say, okay, what are 5 or 6 processes in our business that are challenging today? Write them down, rank them from 1 to whatever number is the last one, and that is your starting point. Those are the challenges you want to solve in the business. And that's a good segue into step number 2, which is identifying tools that can help you with those challenges. And that's where having an IT partner like CIO, again, can't stress how important that is the one that's going to help you identify tools that are not only vetted, but uh, tested and also known to be able to solve the problems that you're presenting it. So we want to make sure that if you're making any investments in any AI tools, that the investments are going to the right place. And we want to minimize this trial and error part of it because that can get expensive very quickly, right? So researching the tools is going to be very important because not every company is going to use the same tools the same way. Number 3 is building team alignment. I'm a huge proponent of this, Juan Carlos. The culture around AI, and I talk about it all the time. Just because we have the tools doesn't mean that our teams and our employees are going to want to run to use them. We have to have conversations around the why of AI tools. Why do we need to use these tools? Are we trying to solve something? Are we trying to speed up something? Are we trying to help give some relief to one of our departments? Are we trying to solve challenges for customers? That's really the important part of the alignment portion and having regular conversations, right? Involving folks from different areas of the company, letting them give input on all this information. That's really going to help build the alignment. So it's not just, a decision that comes from the top that everybody has to listen to. It's a company-wide effort. And, this analogy of being in a canoe, right, and rowing in the same direction. If we're all rowing in the same direction, the adoption is going to be much better. But if we're all rowing in different random areas and going against the water and some are going against each other, we're not going to make that progress that we're looking for. So I truly believe that team alignment is one of the most important things. And then lastly, we have to give our teams and our employees the ability to learn how to use the tools properly, right? We can't just buy licenses and say, hey everyone, here are the tools, go crazy and let us know if you have any challenges. That doesn't create the alignment. That doesn't create safety from a security standpoint. It doesn't give you peace of mind knowing that your team is all rowing in the same direction. So, Juan Carlos, I'm so excited that we have this slide here because this is the starting point in all organizations, from identifying a problem all the way to doing a training on what has been selected as a tool, and doing that over and over again. And eventually you look back 6 to 12 months, into the past after you started this, and you'll notice how far you've come from a
Yeah.
progress standpoint.
Well, I agree. It's important to take these steps, and particularly at the beginning, to take them at a pace where you're going to be able to absorb well the process of getting there, and then you can accelerate. And like an old boss used to say, you want to make sure that when you're uh, tackle a problem, you're not gonna put a solution that whatever you're doing wrong, you're going to do it wrong faster, right? So
That's right.
so you just gotta be have that top of mind.
Absolutely. You have the best analogies today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's touch base really quick again on a very important part of AI usage, in my opinion, and the reason why having a strong IT partner is the number one reason why security and compliance should be top of mind. So AI tools are very easily accessible today, and we all know that depending on the industry that you're in, your team is going to have access to sensitive data, right? So if you're a healthcare company and you're managing patient data, you have to be very careful around where that patient data is being uploaded, because there are regulatory guidelines that govern how that data is shared. And if that information is uploaded, most likely it's unintentionally to these AI tools, we are now in breach of those regulatory requirements. So have to be very mindful of how we're using the tools and what types of data we encourage our employees to share and not share. The same goes for these other industries, right? Financial, legal, manufacturing. Those industries all have different types of personally identifiable and personal health information. And we have to be very mindful of where we're sharing the data, have the right policies in place, have the right security configurations, so that if something or someone were to accidentally share, there is either an alerting system or some type of blocking mechanism so that your data does not get leaked out to these AI tools to then be used to train the models to improve. We want to be very, very careful from a security standpoint. And it also boils down to your regulatory compliance as well. There are folks on this call right now, and also the folks that are going to be watching this recording, that sometimes think of security as an afterthought, and they don't react until something happens. The challenge with reacting when something happens is that it's too late. And like I mentioned before, once the data is out there, there's no pulling it back. The systems are already going to know it forever. So we have to take those additional steps. And what I really appreciate about what CIO Landing is doing is these AI assessments. They help identify these risks, right? And Juan Carlos, I know your team is very, very fanatical about security, compliance, and cybersecurity as a whole. And in my opinion, security should be the North Star and should be a guiding principle in how AI implementation decisions are made.
Yeah, I agree. We have to always wear that hat, because, like you said, sometimes you may have the best intentions, but that doesn't protect you down the line. And got to make sure those boundaries are well established, and make sure that you're thinking before you do. And again, that's one of the areas where, like you said, you got to have a human in the middle. And yes, AI will help you to some degree to say, okay, you got to think about these things, but yes, there is no way you should implement uh, AI without this being the number one, uh, that is in selecting the tool and how you're going to use the tool.
And it's not only the technology from a security and compliance standpoint. This is also a people and process question, right? Are we training our staff to have the right mindset around AI usage? Are we encouraging them on what to share and what not to share? And then from a policy standpoint, is there an acceptable AI policy in the organization? Does it outline what tools are approved for use and what is not allowed? Are we creating great like FAQs or knowledge bases that employees can access if they're unsure? So Juan Carlos, there's a ton of things that can be done, but still, security and compliance, in my opinion, should be a North Star prior to any type of AI deployment that goes into these organizations.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the things that does come to mind is when you have a larger organization and you have these groups of these departments, and you put some sort of AI tool, say within HR, you want to make sure that that information that HR shares, some of it is public, meaning to the organization, and some of it stays in HR. And particularly if you're talking about reviews and what have you, uh, you want to make sure that you've designed it so that that never leaks. Forget about leaking to the outside world, but even within an organization, it
That's right.
has it can have devastating effects. And the
Absolutely.
same thing goes for different areas.
And the big challenge now that I'm seeing is lots of companies are excited around Microsoft Copilot for 365, the
Yeah,
paid version of it. And there has to be a security process prior to rolling out those licenses. Because if there's some folder access or something that's been set up um, by whoever, right, in the organization, and it's not configured properly, there are users that would inadvertently have access to folders they didn't even know they had access to, but Copilot would see it, right?
yeah,
So putting together a security roadmap, going through an assessment, deploying the security controls and doing some validation, and then rolling out Copilot in a phased approach, that has been the number one strategy for businesses that are successful so that you don't run into an inadvertent security incident simply because a Copilot license was activated on an account that had access to a photo that shouldn't have.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think one of the things, one message that comes to mind so people think about it is security is not just letting hackers in or letting personal information to the world, but the first is security among your organization, um, because you want to protect the guilty and the innocent. And it could be with contracts with vendors, with your purchasing department is reviewing agreements, and some of those could be really critical to how you do business, uh, how you negotiate whatever terms and conditions and pricing. And if that gets out, that could be the end for your organization.
Can't recover from that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
The
brings us
most
to the
important
next one.
part. Yeah, the most important part, right? I know there's a bunch of us on the call that are excited and want to move at light speed with AI tools, but the proper way to do this and to prevent any type of unauthorized access that we talked about in the previous slide is this phrase at the bottom, right? IT should be part of the AI planning. In my opinion, also leading the AI planning, not just the cleanup once something happens, right? So, working with an organization like CIO, that's what's going to allow you to take a step back and identify any types of potential risks that the tools can expose, but also the benefits, right? How do we ensure that our teams can take advantage of this amazing technology? You want to also be sure that when IT works with you, you communicate to them everything that you're planning on using it for so that IT can help determine compatibility, right? And for those of you that are on the call, I would like to say if your systems have been online and your emails are working and you haven't had any security breaches and you're able to continue and you don't even think about technology and it's just an afterthought, right? That's because companies like CIO Landing and tons of other IT companies work tirelessly to ensure that these systems stay online. It takes a massive effort to do this. And often it's a thankless job, right? So I just want to give a shout out to all the IT providers, especially CIO, for supporting and managing client infrastructures, because without it, we wouldn't be able to even have an AI conversation. So that's why the compatibility piece is so important, because we want to minimize disruption to your well-designed, well-running IT system in the first place. And then we talked about AI not just being a technology challenge, it has to be a people and process conversation as well. And the good thing about working with IT companies like CIO is that they've seen AI deployments across many different organizations. So they can share best practices and what's worked and what hasn't worked. It just saves you a bunch of time, right? Like Juan Carlos said, the failures have to happen a little bit faster, make the mistakes faster so that they don't linger and slow down your business's ability to move forward.
Exactly.
So from a rollout process, right? If we think about how AI is driven from start to finish, we had touched earlier on first identifying a challenge, then identifying a tool, right? Then figuring out how to get it implemented securely and creating a good process around it. And then most importantly, training the team and ensuring they understand how to use it. Here's an example process, right? So Juan Carlos, you had mentioned earlier on how to, draft emails, right, at scale. And just like everybody on the call, you're either using Outlook or Gmail and you're doing emails all day, right, during the work hours. And it's a very big responsibility. It's the number one way people communicate is through emails. And one example of a problem could be, hey, we're noticing that we're, replying back to customer requests about products, the same 12 emails that we're sending back and forth. And we just have to continue sending those out on a daily basis. Imagine how uninteresting that probably is for your staff or your team members that have to just do the same emails over and over again, right? It becomes very repetitive, very boring, right? So we identify a problem, we have repetitive emails, right? And that's a challenge for us. Secondly, we want to choose the tool, which if you're a Microsoft organization, right, you're going to be using Microsoft Copilot for 365 because that's going to give you the ability to draft and create emails at scale. And it's going to understand how you write messages. It's going to understand your tone of voice. And it's going to be able to summarize and respond and create a draft for your review. So now your one customer service rep, instead of them having to write 27 responses in a day, which takes them 4 hours, may take them 14 minutes to review those. And now you've just freed up 3 hours and 45 minutes of time for that individual to do some more high impact work, right, in the organization. So that's an example of identifying a tool that could potentially help solve the problem that you've selected. You can go through and just like we quantified here, measuring how much time it's saving. And Juan Carlos, I get a lot of companies that ask, well, what's the ROI on AI tools? If we're going to spend X amount of money on an assessment or a software license, what does that mean for us? And what I respond back with is, tell me how much time it takes to execute each process one time, and then multiply by how many times during the week you're doing it, right? So if you're taking 10 minutes per email, right, and you're writing 30 emails, right, a week, that's 300 minutes. What's that, 5 hours of time, right? So that's how you start quantifying specific problems and efficiencies, is simply by looking at a process, seeing how long it takes, and then multiplying by how many times you're doing it on a weekly or a monthly basis.
And you know what, Sagar, what you just mentioned can't be overstated, which is, and I had this conversation not that long ago. It's like, oh, that's nice, but is it really worth my time? And yes, it maybe for one event it's not, but when you look at how much time you spend, whatever the case might be, right? And email is the one we can relate uh, the best, but you're answering 10 emails a day, and you multiply it times 5 and you multiply it times 4, then you're talking real numbers. You're talking, it's like, oh, I've, instead of leaving at 7 every day, I can leave at 5 and have dinner with my family. Uh, that's huge. Um,
Massive.
yeah,
Yeah, it's massive. And if your organization, I just have to say it, if your organization is not thinking about AI today, that's only going to delay your ability to compete tomorrow, right? Today, AI is a competitive advantage for companies. But very soon, Juan Carlos, using AI is going to become a competitive necessity. There are no businesses. It's like the internet, right? What company doesn't use the internet today?
yeah,
I don't know of many, if any, right? Same
yeah.
thing's happening with AI. So taking that first step, prioritizing, a conversation once a week, that's how you get the measuring and the feedback from the team. And then setting up a cohort of selected team members, right? Either department leaders, people managers, your C-suite. Everyone should learn how to use the tools that the organization is selecting from an AI perspective, because the more you can model the usage, the more you set the tone and the culture, the easier that AI adoption becomes. So it's not having to, you shouldn't have to convince people to use the tools. They should already see the value. They should be curious and they should be wanting to use the tools without you even having to say anything. So the training of the team part, and it's not a one-time thing like once a year. This is a continuous process. Just like when you train for a marathon, right? You don't just run 5 miles once and
Yep,
assume
yep.
you're ready for a 26-mile marathon. You got to run the mile, the 2 mile, the 5 miles, the 10, the 20. I'm not a marathon runner, but I have a lot of friends that do that. They train for 6 months, right? So how do you expect folks to become better at AI if we're not training the teams? And how do we expect to train our teams if we're not even having an AI conversation in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. The success for an organization is when, like you said earlier, is you get the alignment and people buy in, and they know it will enhance their work. And
Absolutely.
I think that's the mindset you got to have.
Totally agreed. We talked about this earlier, right? As a cybersecurity enthusiast and professional, these guardrails are going to allow your AI investments to flourish well into the future. The last thing we want to see as technologists is an AI deployment have to be turned off or hit a bottleneck because there's some type of unintended outcome that we had not planned for, right? So when we work through AI assessments, we review then what's the existing policy, right, from a usage standpoint. And if there is none, let's create one, right? Let's be sure that we only have approved tools that have been vetted for security and compatibility with IT's support, right? Making sure that they understand integration and allowing IT to have visibility into how the tools are being used so they can spot unintended outcomes quickly, right? Always reviewing the output so that we're sure that the data that we're sharing is sanitized or anonymized, if it's sensitive. And then we're also watching for hallucinations, right? And made up information. So it's not misleading people to make the wrong decisions. And then just, again, can't stress this enough, not sharing that sensitive data, creating a policy around how we protect ourselves, and putting in some controls so that when security incidents happen, and Juan Carlos, we live in a world where it's when, not an if, when things happen, does IT have the right controls? Do you have the right policies in place? Do you have the right expectations so you can quickly recover and you can move forward with the business that you've been building for so long?
Yes, absolutely. And when you say it's when it's going to happen, so that stresses the point of readiness, and that stresses the point of the planning. So from the onset, not that I want something to happen, but I am prepared and I don't panic when it happens.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I love this title here, leading your business into the AI era safely, right? Just because we want to move fast doesn't mean we compromise integrity and security, right? So, number one here, it says right? AI strategy where the team is aligned. It's, I think, truly to my heart, Juan Carlos, what I believe how companies can be successful is when they communicate the why around AI usage and they build and cultivate a culture of acceptance. There's a lot of resistance and hesitation around tool usage because of not understanding its capabilities or fearing that AI is going to replace people and they're not going to know what to do next, or challenging that AI can't be as smart as someone that's been doing a job for 30 or 40 years, right? So having that cultural alignment is so important. The tech part, I would argue, is much easier than the cultural part. We have to rethink the way we work, not just identify tools that can solve individual problems, but rethink the way that our company operates. And that goes into the second point here, where the winners in AI, they're aligned. We don't have to move at 600 miles an hour, right? Just because Sam Altman of OpenAI says that new ChatGPT models are coming out every year or every month, doesn't mean we need the latest and greatest, but we have to start. And that start is going to snowball and provide value down the road. And then I get this question a lot, Juan Carlos, around expected costs of rolling out AI, enterprise level, or even small business level. So there's like this mentality and this framework that I tell people, and it's the crawling, the walking, and the running. Crawling with AI is using tools like Copilot and Gemini and ChatGPT. Those costs can be anywhere from $20 to $50 a month per user. And from an implementation level, a few $1,000s, a couple $1,000s for, an assessment that helps ensure that your security is in the right place. That's like a starting point. From like a walking standpoint where you do custom deployments, I mean, you're looking at $5,000 to $10,000 to get like a basic AI implementation that can plug into like an ERP system or your CRM or something that's a little bit more capable than just like a Chat GPT license. And then like the enterprise, they're running with AI, right? Crawl, walk, run. The running, that's more like, hey, how do we connect AI to all of our systems and how do we have it consolidate data in one place? You're talking on average like in the tens of thousands, low tens of thousands to start. You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to get AI to put you ahead of 99% of the companies in your market. You just got to start small and start with these assessments, start with the crawling mentality. CIO, I know you all do a fantastic job of being that starting point, but AI implementation is not inaccessible. It's not cost prohibitive. It's totally accessible as long as you prioritize the challenges you want to solve and you work with a company that knows what they're talking about. That's what's going to lead to a successful outcome for you.
I agree. I think one of the things in the exercise of rolling out a solution is to put some numbers and kind of model it just to get a sense that you're walking in the right direction. And I mean, some of the data that's out there, you see people are getting 30% to 70% return on their investment. And that's just on one side. And then the other side, which is the competitive advantage and other areas that sometimes are hard to quantify. So, Sagar, thanks for sharing all this. And
Of course.
I think we're getting close to our time. So we're going to open it up to questions, if there are any questions out there. Let's see. I think I've got a couple of questions came in. So let me read them here. So do we need to train the AI or can we use tools as they are?
Fantastic question. My answer to that is it depends. If you want to use the tool to give you general guidance and information around any topic, you don't need to train them because they've already been trained. But if you want the AI tool to write emails like how you write them in your tone of voice, if you want AI to understand specifics about your organization's data, right, whether it's a marketing slide or sales information or finances, If you want AI to know more about you as an individual and how you work, so it can help manage your calendar or help give you notes before any meetings, then yes, it requires training. So it really depends on the use case. The more personal you want the AI to feel to you, the more training it's going to require.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see. Here's another question. What's a simple, low-risk way to test AI in our day-to-day work?
I think the easiest way, in my opinion, is using, if you're a Microsoft organization, Microsoft Copilot for 365, or if you're a Google Workspace organization, Google Gemini. That is an easy way, quick way, really cost-effective way to get AI started in your organization. And then also, of course, working with a CIO or an IT provider to do an AI assessment, right, to start. That would be a quick and easy way to get some quick wins to build some momentum is by using tools that are already in the ecosystems you're familiar with. So you don't have to go outside and transfer data and do all this training. It's able to be activated with some security configuration that could get you some liftoff very easily.
Great, thank you. And the one last question I have here is, what's one thing we should not do when trying AI for the first time? Oh,
yeah. So
that's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question, but in my opinion, before you do anything AI related, don't forget to talk to IT first, right? I know these tools make it so easy to sign up. You plug in your credit card and you're ready to go. But we want to pump the brakes a little bit. At least be sure that AI is deployed correctly, even if it's a couple of licenses. So my biggest recommendation, whether you're in a business or you're trying it with home at kids, work with someone or that's IT or tech savvy, or work with your IT provider. First, understand, hey, we want to use this tool. Is it okay? And let's just be sure that everyone's aware of what's happening. Because I've seen, Juan Carlos, where some people sign up for an AI tool. They do the single sign-on through Microsoft or Google. They sign up for the tool. They give all the access and they check all the boxes. Don't read the terms and conditions. Hit accept. They try the tool for a couple of days and then they forget. That tool is going to have persistent, ongoing access to your data, and you forget about it. And 6 months later, you're like, oh, I wonder how this data got out of our organization. So working with IT, let's put some guardrails in, very quick guardrails, before we go in and start accessing data with AI tools.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like that's most of the questions, but we're getting close to the end. So
fantastic.
One of the things we